Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Digital Nomad World weekly series. I'm Becky, and once again, I'm going to be your host. And you might recognize my next guest if you watched our Cape Town, South Africa interview, because Sam Wallater is back. Welcome back, Sam.
So I'm so pleased to be back. I really enjoyed our last chat, so I'm excited to talk about the topic today.
Yes, I'm very excited to hear about this thing we were talking about that came up in the interview, a booking platform that you're creating for accommodation in South Africa called Roost and Rest.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, so
So
we're gonna ask you again. I would love for you to tell the audience about your background and your connection with South Africa for those who haven't seen our original interview.
perfect. So I'm born and raised South African, and I was also one of those kids that went to several schools. Because my dad was the bank manager who opened new banks, and as soon as they were doing well, we'd move on. So I have a great love for my country because I've lived in pretty much every single province growing up. So just to emphasize why I feel so strongly about this platform that we're going to discuss, it's because I really do feel like this country has so much to give and so much to show that we should create doors to do that. But the reason why I think we're having this chat is because one of the core target audiences that we're going to have in terms of people who are going to be the tenants are digital nomads. We feel like this platform is going to be a really good platform for them. We're taking into consideration things that are important to digital nomads, but at the same time, we're also taking into consideration what is best for hosts in this country. And I started my digital nomad journey in about 2017, and that was hopping onto Nomad Cruise. And it was really interesting. And I started reflecting on something else that I feel is something that Roost and Rest is going to address. Is I've been on 5 cruises now, and I think over the course of all those cruises, the first one there were no African digital nomads. The second one there were 3 girls, including myself, who all came from a different country in Africa, so we were representing the continent. But there just doesn't seem to be enough digital nomads, or at least they're not coming to the same places that I've been. So my hope is also that Roost and Rest can encourage maybe more regional or local digital nomads to explore the country. And yeah, it's just been an incredible journey to start understanding what kind of impact you have when you live in a different country and you are in a city for not just 2 weeks, but 3 months. And I think that that has also been a very, very big reason that I've wanted to start Roost and Rest because I've seen that sometimes it can become problematic. And I feel like in South Africa, and there are multiple things contributing to it, but because we have just approved this digital nomad visa, I think that we have the opportunity now to address the housing crisis, which does exist in Cape Town specifically, and do it the right way, right? And provide a platform that is catered to digital nomads and what they're planning to do. Because I do think that there's a little bit of a misunderstanding from government how digital nomads work and how they move and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's important that at least part of our business and the people who are developing Roost and Rest are digital nomads themselves so that we can think in that headspace.
Absolutely. I can only imagine how valuable it would be to have digital nomads part of that process. And so, yeah, can you expand a little further on the current housing crisis in South Africa? What is, for example, the current rent in Cape Town that somebody is expected to pay, or what price would you see for like a monthly rental?
Absolutely. I think that this is probably the most important part of our conversation today. So, I've done a little bit of a running the figures, and on average, you would see our middle class to upper middle class household earning between 40,000 and say 60,000 Rand a month. Now, the rule of thumb with South Africa is that you cannot rent a place that costs anything more than a third of your household income. Now, if we're looking at a household income of 60,000 and the expectation is maybe there are 2 kids and a couple, so we're looking for a 3 bedroom house. That means that at the lower end, with the 30,000, people could only get 10,000 Rand rentals, at the high end, 20,000 rental. If you look right now on the Property 24s and the like, there are no 3 bedroom houses for anything below 25. And I've really looked and run these numbers. Then you take into consideration holidays for South Africans. So there's also where I feel like Capetonians and South Africans are being pushed out of the city, and they're getting pushed out far because there are suburbs that would have been previously possibly affordable to them. But now, because there's been like this steep increase in price, those neighborhoods are no longer affordable, right? So what used to be a 12,000 Rand house is going for 20,000 Rand. And then you're really stretching your budget already, right? You've got so many other things that you need to cover, school fees, all that kind of stuff. So I think the reality is that there are a number of factors in play, but I do believe there are ways to address this and make everything feel a little bit more equitable. Because ultimately, then when we talk about these same people wanting to go on holiday, possibly their entire budget for their 7 day holiday is 10,000 Rand. I was on Airbnb this morning having a look, obviously, for the next week to see if I could find a 2 bedroom. I didn't even say what beds, a 2 bedroom for a family in Cape Town and surrounds, and I found two, and both of them were studios. So this is the thing, is like South Africans are even being excluded from holidays. So I do think that it's important to look at it from their perspective, but at the same time, I don't want us to now go, no, we don't want foreigners. We don't want to build tourism. I think that we can find a balance. I think we can make it more equitable for South Africans, but at the same time, encourage this foreign investment from tourism, from digital nomads. And I think that as long as we're looking at it from both sides, we can actually end up with a really great solution, which we're trying to start build with Roost and Rest, even though its focus is small to medium rentals, small to medium, not small, short, short to medium term rentals. That is our main focus immediately, but perhaps we'll grow in that direction at a later stage. But I think that the first is to deal with these shorter rentals because the thing is, at the moment, hosts are going to be getting, often they get their money up front. And because the price is so much higher, even if they're just renting for 3 to 6 months, if they rented it out to a South African for a full 12 months, they still won't make the same amount of money as they would having a foreigner rented for 6. So there's also not very much motivation for hosts to go, well, somebody's going to pay me for 6 months and they pay me up front. Why would I even consider a local?
Yeah, there's so much to take into consideration when you're building a platform like this. So ultimately, you've already mentioned the short to medium term rentals, and that's your focus. How does Roost and Rest differ from something like Airbnb or Booking.com?
So one of the first ways that we're going to be different is we're going to be utilizing a subscription model. And with that subscription model, there'll be a sliding scale for hosts. So you can, and we want to make it really transparent. And the other idea is that we want to make it cheap, right? I think that there is too much focus on absolute profit these days, and that's not what we're here for, right? So for a naught to, I mean, not a naught, a 1 to 3, a host that wants to host 1 to 3 apartments or houses, their subscription would be $10 a month. And for 5 to 10, it would be $20 a month. And then for anything above that, it would be a discussion, right? And the idea there is that no matter what, you're only going to be charged $10 for any booking that happens over that period that you have your subscription. It's going to be month to month. You can renew or cancel whenever you want. And the same goes for digital nomads and tourists and local South Africans who are also touring the Western Cape to start. You can also be assured of the fact that you will only have the subscription amount, and once if you want to cancel and you're leaving South Africa, you can cancel immediately. So it's very important for us to, whilst it's subscription, we do know that there'll be a benefit for hosts over a long period of time. So having run the numbers, we do think that this is sustainable, and it means that long term this could be a static charge that is given to all hosts, and that will make a very big difference in how I believe they will price their apartments and houses. And I think that there'll also be this little bit, and with the difference in pricing, it'll it'll create more opportunity, not only for digital nomads to actually be equitable in the way that they're approaching housing in South Africa, and we're also making it more possible for individuals to go on holiday from in South Africa themselves.
Okay, so if I understand it right, I will sign up. I will be paying a subscription fee. Is there a sign up fee as well?
No, there's no sign up fee. It's
Okay.
just a subscription fee and it is monthly and it is not per, and to be clear, it is not per rental. The subscription fee is if you rent 4 places in a month because you're traveling South Africa or Western Cape for a month, you will only pay your $10. There will not be additional fees or anything like that.
Yeah, and
Then,
this, oh, go ahead.
yes, sorry.
Oh, yes. So this $10 will allow me to see the properties on Roost and Rest and have access to potentially renting them. But as you said, I'm expecting they're going to be cheaper per night, but still I'm paying for whatever the host is going to charge.
Correct, correct.
Okay.
And then a couple of other things that we're looking at is that we are going to be pet friendly first. And that's, I probably just think that is one of the founders. As you know, I have 3 dogs, and Michaela, also, who is one of the founders, also has 2 dogs. And for us, it's really important to be able to bring our furry family with us. And I think in the Western Cape, there are going to be more people that are looking into the space, but they're just not enough. So we will definitely be pet friendly first. And then another initiative we're going to work on is rewarding hosts for accommodating local South Africans at local prices. So we might be considering a percentage of time. So if you block out 30% of your time for South Africans to book at a local rate, you can get rewarded in certain ways. We're still working out what those rewards are, but we, again, like I said, our big thing is we want to make it equitable. We want to make it achievable for South Africans while not damaging or causing any harm to the growing foreign investment in tourism, especially in the Western Cape.
So you are incentivizing the hosts, but you, as you've said before, you're not going to close this off to digital nomads or tourists, but
Mm,
hopefully through the incentivizing you'll come to a balance. Because I would not want all the tourists and digital nomads to take the properties either at those better
mm.
prices. Everybody loves a deal, I know. So it's a
Absolutely, absolutely. So ultimately, like I say, with the subscription model, we believe that digital nomads and tourists will actually still benefit from a lower price because they aren't those fees that they're going to be paying or the hosts are going to be paying. So it still means that they could get a deal. But we look at South Africans a little bit differently. And I'm just saying, like, there would be a portion of that time dedicated to South Africans. And that's entirely up to the hosts. So it depends on what they want to do. Oh, and the last thing, which is just a sort of fun feature that we've decided on, is we are going to be using generative AI to allow hosts to create pages that suit their apartment or their housing style. So if it is more of a boho feel, you can create your page bespoke. It's based on a template, of course, but you'll be able to use different kinds of coloring and everything, and you can utilize generative AI to create it. But we just think that it creates a more unique experience, really getting the feel for the house before you're even in the house. So that's one of the features that we're quite excited about. And it's more of a fun feature than anything else.
That is lovely. I'm sure the hosts are going to enjoy that. Okay, now to get back to the hosts, how are you finding hosts for your platform? How are you spreading the word about Roost and Rest?
So we're utilizing multiple platforms. Just to be clear, though, Roost and Rest is officially only launching in May. We should have probably said that earlier. So we're still building at the moment, but we have a few connections specifically in rental property markets because there are a lot of people that are using rental agents to do short-term rentals these days. I think because there is so much money to be exchanged. So we will be approaching them directly, but we're also going to be utilizing typical social media channels and I also, one of our partners is in property and he has those deep connections because we know the biggest thing is that this platform only works if we have apartments and hosts and then the target audience who are willing to rent their apartments. So we're trying to throw quite a wide net and utilize as much opportunity like this podcast to talk about what we're trying to achieve with Roost and Rest so that when we do go live, we already have a great amount of stock. On our website at the moment, we do have a form that you can fill in to get one email from us, which will be the email that says we're live. We do promise we will not send any other emails. So if you go to the website, which I'll tell you guys about a little later, and you're really interested to see what happens next with Roost and Rest, that is our promise. You will get one email from us, and that will be to let you know it is live.
Fantastic. Okay, now I have to ask you about the not fun part of starting any business, but the really important side as well. Security and also licensing. So, like, do you need to get licenses for these properties, similar to how Airbnb has had to get a license in certain areas? Or I'm not sure how that works in Cape Town.
We we're sort of looking into the legalities of everything, and we want to do it the best way we can. I do think that there are benefits to us being a South African born company and not necessarily as much legislative and paperwork tied up kind of approach because it's a South African country, I mean, South African business as opposed to an international business trying to do business in South Africa. So, yes, we are looking at that. And that's also why we are launching in May and not haven't just gone live. We want to make certain that the platform is stable from the moment people are using it. And that includes any kind of requirements around licenses and so on.
Yeah, I guess that also would have to do as well with insurance. I myself am
Correct.
sure how Airbnb handles things with insurance. Fortunately, I've never gotten into a difficult situation in an Airbnb, but I know it's an issue.
I do want to note though, and I've actually been an Airbnb host, I think, since 2011. And initially, they didn't have these insurances for hosts, right? It was only something they built in when the business became bigger. So, whilst we are looking into insurances, there are still options that you can take insurance on out on your household for renters, just typically in South Africa, right? So, potentially in the beginning, the onus might be on the individual who wants to host to get their insurance, just understanding we are a startup and there are financial requirements around securing insurance, especially on a large scale. But these are the things that we're trying to, work through and get to the best result. It's so important to us. Again, I just want to use that word equitable, that everything is so fair in the way that we approach this. And that includes what can we actually provide you at this stage, and is that good enough for you? We understand that potentially that lack of security around us not necessarily offering insurance might be a no-go for you, and we get that. But we also are hoping that we will find hosts who want to help grow the platform and help grow the South African economy, help grow the actual leisure and rest of South Africans so that they can actually afford to go on holiday. I think we don't realize how important it is to just get that 1 or 2 weeks away from your everyday life. And it's not fair that that's not achievable right now.
Yeah, it's really not fair. And when you think about it deeper, Airbnb started and was able to scale around the world, but wouldn't it be wonderful to have a local version of Airbnb for
Mm.
especially every major city, and somehow have like a fund where all these hosts are, able to get that. It's kind of what you're saying with the subscription, like get a bit of money so they don't have to send it on to the customers.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, that put very well, very well.
Yeah. So you've mentioned a few things, but I'm going to give you a chance to mention even more. So why should people choose Roost and Rest over the usual booking platforms in Cape Town?
Okay, I'm going to start with the top three we already have, right? So, certainly the subscription model is going to be great. And I know we've mentioned this already, but I do think it limits the barrier to entry for some people. And then, of course, our pet friendly first is going to really open up travel for South Africans, I think, in a great deal, and probably Southern Africans as well. The other thing is that whilst we're starting in the Western Cape, we will be expanding to the rest of South Africa, and from there, Southern Africa. There is no platform at the moment that caters to all these countries in the way that we plan on catering to them with this kind of business model. So we are going to make it easier for you to find rentals, not just in South Africa, but in Namibia, in Mauritius, in Botswana. And that's the long-term goal. That is the vision. We really want to service South Africa, and we really want to service Southern Africa and bring in that foreign investment. because all of those other countries have a lot to show. And the more that people come to Africa and South Africa and Southern Africa, I think the more they're going to understand how rich and beautiful this land is, and the culture, and it's so worthwhile. And I don't think that there is enough focus on going to Africa in the way that the way that digital nomads do, really immerse themselves in the culture. They're there for 3 months and they experience everything. We want foreigners to have those experiences.
For sure. I think that there's, like you were mentioning these other Southern African countries. When you started talking about it, I was like, yeah, to know there was a platform I could go to right away that wasn't something like an Airbnb, I would feel like the trust is intrinsic and I would feel more open to going to those places and also feel safer because I know
Mhm.
we haven't talked about it really, but that is the number one issue, I think, with a lot of people's perception of going to Southern Africa.
Yeah.
And it's not always true.
No, definitely. And I think that that's the thing, is that it's not a monolith, right? Realistically speaking, if you just looked at the difference between South Africa and Namibia, like the crime statistics in Namibia just can't even come close in as a rival to South Africa. And that's the thing, people might not know that. They might not know that this country is a little safer than the others. And when I say safety, I mean, we did have a deep conversation about this last time. And I do say that sometimes we equate lack of safety to the fact that there is poverty in a country. So the reality as well is that there is different levels of poverty and wealth in all of these countries. So you're also going to have different kind of economic things at play. But when you look at Africa as a monolith and you just think that it is one thing, you're never going to be able to explore those options. And we want to open people's eyes to the fact that there is more to see and more to do.
So you mentioned that you have been an Airbnb host since 2011. Are you still an Airbnb host? Do you intend on
Not
putting me on Roost and Rest if so?
not currently. I'm not a host. After a couple of years on the road, thinking that I would not come back, I decided to get rid of the property, thinking I would be, full-time digital nomad. And then 2020 happened, and we all know what happened in 2020. So yeah, I'm not specifically a host anymore, but I have been a host, and I've got a very close friend who runs a number of those, where I said, some companies run like 5 different apartments. And it's been very interesting to chat to her and hear how much has changed since I've like not regularly hosted. And it does seem like it's gotten really expensive and a little bit elitist, and that just shouldn't always be the focus. I mean, if you're going to be a luxury supplier of holidays, that's perfectly fine. But I feel like Airbnb has always said that it was the booking place for the people, and I don't know if that's necessarily the case. But again, I don't know how much this is Airbnb's fault in comparison to what hosts are able to get now. Are they just pushing up the prices because they're aware they could get a higher price for their daily rate? There are a lot of things at play, and this is something that we're trying to work through so that when we are launched in May, we have worked all of these things out.
Yeah, you bring to mind the cleaning fees that I saw just
Mm.
skyrocket on Airbnb, and they seem so arbitrary. I know wages are
Yeah.
different in different countries, but why is one accommodation, why are the cleaning fees lower than the one that's down the street? So do you have
Yeah.
a for cleaning fees and how you're going to handle that on Roost and Rest?
So what we're thinking of, and there are a couple organizations, well, businesses in South Africa that offer, I guess, cleaners as a service. And we might want to partner with them so that we can get a standard rate across all the Airbnb, Roost and Rests. We're looking at different partnerships with different businesses to actually have our vision come to light. So if we can basically, control how much people are spending on cleaning because it's a standardized cost. That is another way we believe we'll save, especially for the renters and the digital nomads.
Be a great help. I think another thing when I think about Airbnb, if I was a host, having somebody or having the option to like purchase the service of somebody coming and giving the keys or handling not full-time management, but just letting someone in
Yeah.
if I'm on my holiday, that would
Yeah.
be great. But I feel like, yeah, Airbnb didn't go down that avenue either. So it'd be interesting. It'd be an interesting problem to solve, but also
Yeah.
thinking of security. So I know that's part of it.
Completely. So interestingly, though, there is again a service in South Africa. This friend of mine that I was talking about, where she manages the 5 apartments, that is her sole focus. She's ensuring that the apartments are managed. She does the key handover. The actual hosts do not deal with anything at all. So they exist in South Africa, and this is where we want to find some more of those partnerships. If we put the partnership in front of a host and we say, you don't need to look for anybody, these guys are trusted and this is how we approach it and all that kind of stuff, and this will be your account manager, I think hosts will feel more comfortable and they will feel like that's a really good value added service. You don't have to take it, but it is available.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, thank you so much for sharing Roost and Rest with us. I really wish you all the success with this. I can't wait to see the platform when it launches in May, and we will remind everybody about that in the description. I hope for anybody thinking about going to Cape Town that you consider Roost and Rest first over Airbnb. And Sam, is there anything else you'd like to share with us that we haven't touched on? And could you let us know where to follow you to find Roost and Rest?
Absolutely. So, just to sum up, I just wanted to say, Roost and Race is going to be a platform for South Africans by South Africans, but it is also going to be for people who want to travel to South Africa. We really appreciate that people have an interest in our country and they want to learn more about it and spend time on our beaches. So we want to marry those two worlds. And it is our hope that people will see the value in that and really be drawn to utilizing Roost and Rest as their platform for holiday rentals and short to medium term rentals. And that's really what I want to leave you with. And then just to find us, we're on roostandrest.co.za, the South African tail. And then we are on Instagram at Roost and Rest SA. And it is with the ampersand, not and the word.
Very well said and very clear for all of us. Thank you, Sam. As I said, wishing you the best, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. It's been great.
Thank you.